And
I would agree with you on that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to. It saves your body.
I worked a match not too long ago, and I think I took 2 bumps in the match and had the crowd on their feet the whole time just because I worked them, so I totally understand what you're saying.
A lovely thing.
Exactly. Alex, go ahead.
First off, Sandman, this is Alex R. here, and I wanted to say it's a pleasure to talk to you as you're one of my favorites in the business. So I guess my question for you is, what was your relationship with, Nancy Benoit like, or woman, as she was your valet?
Oh, what are you kidding me? That's so funny that you bring that up because I was talking about it earlier today with one of my sons, my youngest son. He was watching, believe it or not, we got VCR tapes, and my youngest son is 10, Oliver. Ty now, the guy that actually did the kid that did the angle with us, he's 20. He's in the other part of the house watching the Flyers game right now, the playoffs, which I really wish that was. But Nancy was the best because she had Kevin Sullivan, and she learned from Kevin Sullivan, and Kevin Sullivan was pretty much like a Paul Heyman, like a maybe a Dusty Rhodes, except if he was booking himself. You know what I mean? He was like a great innovator. You know what I mean? So Nancy learned a lot from him, and then Kevin. It's a real weird story how Paul hired Kevin, Nancy comes in, and then Paul hired. We lost some talent. I forget who it was, to WCW or WWF back then. And we lost some talent, so Paul's like, you know what, we're gonna bring in we're gonna bring in like Rey Mysterio, and we're gonna bring in Eddie Guerrero, and we're gonna bring in like the Benoits and stuff like that. That like got that whole group started. That was kind of like Kevin. I'm not sure if I know it wasn't Todd's idea because I talk to Todd every day, but yeah, they made the change Kevin made the change from bringing like the Mexicans in because even though he wasn't the booker, he was kind of like everybody respected him. You know what I mean? I mean, he couldn't work his way out of it. He's like me. He couldn't work his way out of a paper bag, but he knows how to get over, and he knows how to get other people over, and he was very, very good at that. So I remember his last night when he was leaving to go to WCW, he signed I think it was like $368,000 a year contract with WCW. The night he left is the night I ended up getting Nancy that night or the night after, and Kevin had been around for a while, and Kevin pulled me aside. He's like, listen, kid, you got it. I'm giving you my wife because Paul asked me what to do with her. I can't bring her to WCW yet, which in a year from then, he did end up bringing her once he got a little bit more stroke. He goes, listen, he goes, out of all these guys in the soccer room, he goes, I think you deserve her and you can work with her well. And I was like, I was like a kid, like talking about like Joe DiMaggio, you know what I mean? So I was like, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And then I kind of let Nancy helped school me on working on things. And the best idea she ever came up with is when I did the the Dreamer, the blind angle with Dreamer when he hits me with the cane and puts a cigarette in my eye, which everybody believed. It was Nancy's, because I wanted to like go throughout the crowd bleeding and everything. She goes, no, we're not going to do it that way. She goes, you're going to go up with a cigarette. He's going to put the cigarette in. He's going to push the cigarette towards your eye. Then he's going to swing the cane or however the heck it went. And then I'm like, all right, then I'll roll out and I'll go wrong through the crowd. She goes, no. She goes, you're going to lay there. She goes, you're going to lay there, and every match I always go to it, so like the pregnant pause, she says, I'm going to look at you. Dreamer's going to look at you. Right after it happens, and then Nancy looks at Dreamer. Dreamer looks at me. Nancy looks at me. Dreamer looks at Nancy. Just that that little bit of pause that put like a reality into it. And then they bought it so much when I went through the back. Todd and Paul, I don't know who it was, either Todd or Paul, they were like, all right, we're going to take you out through the crowd, even though we didn't come in through the crowd. But they ended up taking me out through the crowd with like a bloody like towel on my head or something like that, and everybody believed it. And it was, and the reason that whole angle got over so much. And then I came back blind like a month or 2 months later. Nobody had seen me because, you know, I didn't live in Philly, and I lived down in the suburbs of Philly, in the rich suburbs of Philly and stuff, and it just worked out real good, and most of it was because of Nancy.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. What are your thoughts on your WCW run as the Hardcore Hack?
It is what it is. I mean, they signed me, and it was Dallas Page who got me signed. Paul Lee had promised me, my deal with Paul was we didn't have a contract. We had a handshake agreement that I would be his highest paid player in his game. I found out he paid Sabu $1,000 more than me. Like, I think it was $14,000 to $15,000 for a pay-per-view in Pittsburgh. And then once I found that out, I called Todd. I remember I was driving from like Dayton, Ohio to Cincinnati, Ohio, and I was pissed. So then once I got to Cincinnati, I flew back to Utah, and then I called Raven. I was like, you know what? Screw Paul Lee. I want to go to WCW. What can you do for me? Raven's like, well, he's like, Hack. He goes, he didn't even say Hack. He calls me Knucklehead or whatever. He's like, listen, Knucklehead. He goes, I don't have no stroke. He goes, but the last 3 times that I met Dallas Page 3 times, like at Raven's birthday, Page's birthday, and somewhere else, and me and Page just got along great. So he goes, listen, he goes, I said, well, where are you guys at today? He goes, Casper, Wyoming. I said, well, you know what? I'm going to take a flight to Casper, Wyoming. He goes, all right, I'll see you there. Little did I know that anybody that lived in Atlanta, they were flying Delta. They were flying Delta to Utah, Utah to Casper. So I call up on the phone. I get a ticket. I race down to the airport. I walk down, and it was Rick Rude and Dallas Page standing there talking to each other, and because they were on my same flight to Casper, Wyoming. And I was like, and I couldn't say to Rick, I was like, hey, Dallas, can I pull you aside, talk to you? Because Rick had been in ECW for a couple of years, and me and Rick were great friends, so it wasn't like I was going to be like, yo, Rick, I can't talk in front of you. I was like, yeah, Dallas, I want to leave ECW. He goes, you just told me like months ago you would never leave ECW. I said, well, things have changed. Dallas says to me, because I think he didn't want to say in front of Rick that, listen, I'll get you hired, no problem, because Dallas got, if there was 110 guys in the locker room, Diamond Dallas got 30 of them hired, because him and Eric Bischoff were friends, and because Bischoff got that deal in Orlando for him. That's what skyrocketed Bischoff to like the president of the company. And Diamond Dallas was cool with Bischoff when Bischoff was a nobody. So when Bischoff got power, Dallas got power. So the next day, Dallas calls me. He goes, listen, I'm sending a ticket for you. There'll be a limo to pick you up. It was September 8th or September 9th. Flew into Atlanta, got in a limo. They took me to, it wasn't the Turner building. It was another building at that point because they had been switching over. It wasn't like the CNN building, but I went in, talked to Eric Bischoff in 15 minutes, had a $750,000 deal done. So this is like September 9th. September 10th, they sent me a $10,000 signing bonus, which was part of my deal. September 11th, they sent me to go piss at a place in to take a drug test in a place right in, because I was living I had a house in Philly, a house in Utah, and a house in Florida then. So I was at my house in Florida, so they told me to go to some place off of like Waters, Dale Mabry in like Florida, I think. and then went and pissed for him, and then I sat until March. They signed me. They were paying me $5,000 a week. And if Kevin Nash never got the book, I might have done my whole 3 years there and never even showed up on TV.